What is up, my fellow parents? Hey, we are here because we love you. We care about you. And parenting is the most important job. And man, there's so much stuff we got to teach our kids. We get to teach our kids, guide them, mentor them. And so I saw this really interesting woman on social media. Her name is Claire. And I like what she posted. And Jordan and I were talking about guests and how we raise great kids. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to Claire. So I have this woman that I'm excited to get to know. I really don't know her. I don't know much about her. I don't know if I agree or disagree with her. And that's kind of exciting to have someone on a show. We're just going to listen to her and ask good questions. And so, Claire, welcome. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
All right. So we've, part of raising wonderful adults is just raising them with teachings and guidelines and morals and values and teaching them about self-control and about romance and about giving them wisdom, because all these people on Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, they don't often teach wisdom. And so we are going to ask Claire some juicy questions. Like, one of my opening questions are going to be, what are some things we need to know? Like, give us the basics right off the bat. But what's really interesting is that you may not see a lot of sex ed stuff on social media. Like, Jordan, I don't really get very much. You've even asked me, can we do an episode about sex education?
There was a time here, Claire, a couple months ago, and I was like, man, let's just get into it. Let's talk a little bit about just some of the stuff you encounter as a parent. When am I supposed to talk to my child? Like, I don't have a guide. And I know there are books out there, but in terms of like getting like self-help, there's a lot of that stuff on social media. You'll hear, a guru post this or someone try to post wisdom here on this. But it seems like in this field, sex education, like, I don't see much at all. And, this is your business. So I guess maybe you can answer as to why that is.
Well, there's a lot of reasons. First off, it's been such a taboo topic. So many parents don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the minute you start to bring it up, the minute I tell anyone that I teach sex ed or I work in sex ed, they're just like, what? I see the cringe happening, and they're like, why would you want to do that? Why? And I think we all, like, most people have awkward or uncomfortable or just not good enough experiences learning about sex ed and puberty. So it just kind of leaves you with the cringe. It leaves you with that. But so that's step one. It's just been so taboo. And the other issue is the algorithm hates it. It just hates it. We have so many protections in place against child pornography, against like grooming children. And of course it's still happening out in the world in spite of all of that. But even with all of that, the algorithm sees the word sex and the word child in a title, in my posts, and I'm just immediately shut down. I'm immediately selling children, and this information is gone. And then you have people like me, and there are people out there that want to teach sex ed, and they want to teach the proper language, and they want to make it a natural and organic thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But then you get on a video, and if the algorithm hears you say sex or penis or vagina or any of these words that are teaching tools that are actual science words, you are immediately shut down. So then people start coding their language. And then to me, you've just diluted the whole purpose of the program, which is to remove the taboo. So I've had so many, just in starting to market my business, because this is my first year as a digital and online offering. I've taught in person all this time. I've had so many marketing gurus and coaches telling me I need to start saying segs or to say corn. I just need to start
corn or segs.
I need to stop saying the words.
Well, good news. This is a podcast. I want you to just do not hold back.
Well, thank you.
Okay. I have noticed that. Segs, corn.
I won't play because
don't hold back, because that's actually, you're right. Because something I've learned, over the years of my learning from more gurus on this is you're supposed to say, vagina. You're supposed to say masturbation. You're supposed to say these words to our kids and teach them and do it in a very like calm, very normal way. Because if we come off by showing any type of like embarrassment or emotional, they're going to pick up on that. So it's like we're teaching them right there. Yeah, whenever you talk about this, you should be embarrassed or you should hide it. Isn't that right?
Yeah. that it's really unhelpful to do that just from an educational standpoint. But it's really it's disempowering to the child, but it's also disempowering to the parent that's trying to talk to them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, my message, and I think so many sex educators that are out there trying to promote, the message is, this is not taboo. This is information, and the more information your child has, the more equipped they are to make good decisions. And if they don't understand what these words are, and you can't even say them, then how do we ever break the cycle of this being this untouchable topic that leaves kids just hanging and figuring it out? I have so many dads that are like, my kid's just gonna figure it out. I'm
Right,
like, yeah.
right. It's
Oh yeah,
unknown.
that's how
Yeah,
it's
they'll
gonna
figure it out
work
from a
out.
friend. They'll figure it out from a friend who
Or
then found a magazine, or back in the day, or now it's just you got the phone and you have
you got
access to the
Pornhub, you've
world
got
in
Oh
front of
YouTube,
yeah.
you.
you've got all this stuff. Yeah.
So this might be a weird question to ask you, but if you were to have a magic wand, right now you've got kids learning sex ed in school from teachers. Maybe the teachers are forced to do it. Parents are trying. Maybe some parents are great at it. I don't know. But if you were to have like a magic wand, what would be the best way possible for kids to learn about sex education?
Oh, absolutely, from their parents. That's my platform always.
That matches the theme of our show. Please continue. Parents are
That
teachers
is
and every
what,
home's a school.
yeah.
Please tell me more.
My business, Clarify Sex Education, is about empowering parents to own the talk at home. Studies have shown it is so clear. It doesn't matter. I mean, kids are going to learn from so many sources, but 70% of what an adult believes about sex, about their bodies, and about relationships and how to engage in them is learned from their parents.
Yeah,
And
70%.
that doesn't mean you can't unlearn it, but in
Yeah.
the initial 20s and 30s of your life, where you're making the most important relationship decisions, 70% of the value system that you operate from has been learned from your parents. And what is so crazy about this is it doesn't matter if your parents intentionally talk to you about it or not. You're still getting that information from their silences, from the things they won't talk to you about, from the things they avoid. You're formulating a value system based on their responses, whether they're intentional or not.
Okay,
And
psychoanalyze me for a
huge.
second.
That's huge.
I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm not trying to be funny. I feel like I learned about sex from watching MTV, specifically MTV Spring Break.
Oh yeah,
And also watching pornography through the lines. Like, because back in the day,
Channel 99, bro.
you can hear the sounds and you can see it. And I was like, wow. I mean, so like, how did my parents never talked to me about any of this. And then I was doorbell ditching one day. We did an episode on this. We actually have an episode in the past. If you like the way Jordan and I talk about sex ed, you can go back. It's called Ask Sean, Puberty, Masturbation, and the Birds and the Bees. You can see that was recorded over this summer. And we're proud of that episode. There's some really good stuff in there. But yeah, so then we were doorbell ditching, and my buddies and I found a big stack of pornographic magazines out on the curb that was going to be recycled. And I was in high school, so yeah, George's laughing. So we brought them home, and just like, I mean, that's actually a pretty sad story where I started developing an addiction to pornography at the age of 15 years old. So sad. But yeah, tell me, like, if you could, I don't know, it's kind of a weird question.
It's got to be so much harder for her because of the cell phones in the World Wide Web now to battle. Back in the day, magazines, it's like you had to find the magazine. Now it's like you just find a friend with a phone.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So like, tell me about that 70%, because how did I learn about sex ed from my parents, 70%, if I learned about it through MTV Spring Break and a box of recycled magazines?
The difference is that's what you learned, what like sexual encounters were and how to have them from a lot of those resources, but the values and the way you think about relationships, and probably like when you found that porn, like how would your parents like silence or conversations about relationships or how they treated each other within that context? So now you have this new information from pornography about what sexual encounters could be in this imaginative way. And then you take that home where you're being shaped by the actual encounters your parents are having in front of you. Like, how are they treating each other? If they found the porn, how did they respond? Were they angry? Were they embarrassed? Were they just like hide it under the rug? Like, all of that is just, it's building a system. So really the porn was just 30% of what made you the sexual being you are today.
Yeah.
but it was how they responded and lived within that, and you're integrating that information into the system that you already had, and then they reinforce it
Wow.
with how they respond.
So this is making me think. I'm a
Yeah.
big movie buff. I love watching
Yeah.
movies, and there's a movie with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. It's called Blended. It's
Oh,
after they
I
made
haven't seen
50
that
First
one.
Dates.
Okay.
It's adorable. But there's a point in the scene where it's like these two families, kind of like Brady Bunch. You got the mom with a couple of boys, and then you've got the dad with a couple girls, and basically they come together. Well, there's a scene where the mom finds her son's magazine under his bed, and
Yeah.
the mom tears it up and throws it away. And the mom's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I invaded his privacy. I now need to go to the store, buy him a new magazine,
Oh,
put it back to show him that I'm like the cool mom and
I
that
that's
and
one
I'm
of many
okay."
reasons I didn't like that movie, Jordan. It's like
Right.
I mean, like there was some weird stuff in that movie. Please
Right.
continue.
So my question is like, that is what you're saying. It's how we're reacting to
Right.
this situation. I don't know what you're going to say to that scenario, but let's say we are a parent and we have these kids at a certain age that are going through this. What are we supposed to do? We don't want them to feel awkward. I feel awkward. Do I play the cool parent? Am I supposed to make this a serious topic? And so, what would you advise
Good.
on that?
That I actually really early on in my career when I started teaching sex ed, I was so young and I just knew nothing. I'm working with parents and kids, and I had a dad come to me, and this is one of my favorite stories, and it really shaped how I respond to this question. This dad had a sixth grade daughter who was in my program, and he said that he'd walked in her bedroom and she was using the family laptop, but she was looking at porn, and he saw like his little girl looking at these images, and he just
How old was she at the time?
she was in sixth grade, so I think she was 11,
Oh, okay.
and
All right.
she had the screen up, and she saw him and she thought she was in trouble, like she knew she shouldn't be looking
Yeah.
at it, and he
Yeah.
panicked and he was like, what are you doing? And he like slammed the
Right.
computer shut and he ran out of the room, and he just stood in the hall for a second and was
Yeah.
like, what am
Yeah.
I doing? What am I
Uh
doing?
huh.
Right.
And so he took a deep breath and he said he went back in and he sat on her bed and he just put his arm around her and was like, are you okay after what you saw? And she just started bawling. And then he found out she just accidentally found, like, she was looking up, like, Wet and Wild nail polish colors, and all this stuff
Oh
pops
my
up. And, like, it's
gosh.
So
not like she was,
sad.
like, trying to
Ah.
find some, like, sex
Right.
images. She
Right.
just found it on accident. And so then he had her in the crook of his arm and told her what pornography was and why it's so harmful to the people that are involved, to the people that look at it, and how it can rewire your brain, and how he just really doesn't want her to have hit her exposure to sexuality through this. That this is a really sad and harmful way
Yeah.
to learn about sex, and he doesn't want her to look at this stuff. And he was sorry that he panicked. He was just so
Yeah.
like he was so shocked and scared and alarmed,
Sure.
and he just explained to her what it was. And that, to me, I was so moved by that when he told me that.
Yeah.
And of course the fruit of that with an 11-year-old girl is that for the rest of her teenage years, guess who she always came to when she had any dating problems or
Love
any
it.
sex related conversations, because she already
Yes.
knew her dad would sit down with her and just be like, are you okay? You were exposed to this, like whether you sought it out or not. Like, how are you thinking about this? Like, what does it do for you? And I have really advised that all along, is to have, when you catch a child doing this, ask them what they know about pornography or what
Yeah,
they
what they
think
know.
it is,
Yes.
and explain to whoever you're talking to what it can do, and how it neurologically
Yeah.
can change the patterns in
Yeah.
your brain, and it can inhibit your relationships for your life, and it's so hard to break those addictive patterns. And a child, even if they can't understand everything you're explaining about it, they can understand that you think it's harmful and that you're there for them, and that if you could control what they choose, you would never want them to choose this. And it's not a punishment, it's a protection for their heart and for their bodies and for their minds. And I just think a lot of kids, even if it's really tempting, to understand the full picture of what pornography is, and to understand what participating in it does to you as a human being. And not just
That's
like in a
good.
Yes.
spiritual way, which it does a lot, but in like a very physiological, biological way. It changes
Yeah.
how you think and
Yes.
experience the most basic and important
Mm-hmm.
human thing you can do, which is mating. And it's just, do
Yeah.
you want to dilute like this
Mm.
really important part of your human experience with this? I mean, there's just,
Mhm.
the more information you can provide, even a young child, the more you're allowing them to make an informed decision when they encounter it. And they will, especially when they see how much care and thought and love goes into that conversation.
Claire, I'm really vibing with you. One of the reasons I, invited you to come on this is just from what I saw, but also just you have this mission statement here. It says Claire believes that in today's fast-paced world where kids are exposed to information earlier than ever, parents have the unique power to shape their children's understanding of relationships and sexuality. Her goal is to empower parents to transform what may feel like uncomfortable conversations into meaningful connections, setting the foundation for healthy relationships and emotional well-being in their kids' lives. And what I loved about what you just said there is you actually answered Jordan's question, but you did it in a story through storytelling. Like I could, I could even go back and take notes. Me like those were seven pointers from Claire. Like you actually told us a ton of great tips there through the context of a story. So thank you so much. Here it's like a really juicy question for you. It's very personal, so you don't have to ask it or answer it. Excuse me, I'll ask it.
Okay.
Did what? Everybody has like a reason for why they pick a profession. Jordan is one of the country's top, weathermen. So it makes you wonder, like, what happened in your childhood that led you to want to be into weather? Like, it must have been his experience in the outdoors must have been so amazing and positive that he's like, I can make a whole career out of this. My experience with my parents in my childhood and the lack of parenting led me, to do this. So allow me to ask, did something happen to you in your childhood or teen years that was maybe either very, very painful or very, very positive that led you to say, you know what, I want to be a teacher. I want to guide. I want to do this. I want to be a sexual educator.
That I'm very grateful to say this was not a painful experience. I have had many painful life experiences, but not around my sexual health, which I'm really glad to say.
Yeah. So
I had a really unique upbringing. I identify as a preacher's kid. And I'm the oldest child of a Presbyterian pastor, and my mom is also the Christian educator. So my parents were always a team, and education was the most important thing, I think, in the way that they taught and in the values that they shared with me. So they were constantly teaching me, and my dad passed away when I was 21, but my mom is still alive. And all of my developmental years, they were always very, very forthright and open and encouraged.
Really?
This is not your typical Christian parenting upbringing. They instilled many great truths and faith in me, and they encouraged me to question and to seek answers, and like they were just always pushing me to learn more. And my dad in particular, he spent a lot of, I didn't even realize this at the time. It was so integrated into our relationship. All of my childhood, he was very busy. I mean, the church was the most important thing. He was always choosing congregation over our family. But when he was home, he always wanted to watch movies with us. And that was like a relaxing thing. I just had a sister. It was just the two of us. We'd watch movies together. And he would frequently show me adult movies, like things that were above my maturity always. And he would talk to me about them. We'd have these long debriefs about the relationships and the movies. And I remember watching, I don't know if this was a little movie that came out years ago when I was in high school, and it was called Junebug. And this was the day I realized what he was doing. He like stops the movie. There's this scene where this couple, they're just all over each other in the car. They can barely drive the car. They're just like hooking up while they drive. Yeah. And Dad stops the TV, and he was like, "What do you see?" And I was just like, Dad, seriously.
Right.
And he was like, "This is Eros love. there are no roots
Mm-hmm.
here. This is just
Yep.
eros
Oh,
love. It's
Yep.
built on lust. This relationship
yeah.
is not going to last. Let's watch the rest of the
Totally.
movie. And then we
Yeah.
watch the rest of the movie, and of course everything falls apart. Like they have no
Sure.
foundation whatsoever, and he was right.
Right. You're right.
And that was the moment that
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my God, Dad has
I'm
been
like,
giving
yeah.
me all the time,
Right.
every
Have you talked
single
to him about
time."
this?
That's what he's been
I
Have you
doing.
talked
didn't
to him
get
about
to.
this?
It's sex
He died
education
before I
Oh.
through
could.
cool
Oh.
movies.
Yeah,
Wow,
and
that
so
is
he was
why.
always watching movies
Yes.
with me, and if the movies, he was not ever like, "You can't see that. That's a rated R movie." He would just say, "You have to
Uh-huh.
watch it with me." And
Yes.
so I watched
Yes.
a
I've done
lot
that
of
same thing with
movies
my
with my
kids.
dad.
Yes.
And I mean, in sixth grade, I saw the Titanic in the theaters, just me and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Wow.
all my friends were
Yeah.
like, gross, you watched that sex scene with your dad? And
Yeah.
like, we just talked about it
Talked
afterwards.
about
And
it.
Yeah.
he would be like, how do you think she's going to feel after that? Like, she's never going to
Great
see that guy
storytelling.
again. And he just
Great
made
story.
me like
Yeah.
feel that out. And to
Yeah.
your point, it was a lot of storytelling. He told me a lot of stories of parishioners
Mm-hmm.
and things their kids did and how it turned out,
Yep.
and that really really shaped me. And it's not like I felt super comfortable coming to him to talk about sex or dating, but I
Sure.
was very
Right.
clear on the
Yeah.
values that he had and his
Yes.
hopes and expectations for how I use the information about my body and relationships that I had been learning. And meanwhile, my mom, she was always the opposite end. She would get me alone in the car, the side by side conversations, and she'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, "I don't know if anyone ever told you, but having sex makes you feel like attached to someone, and
Mm.
no one ever talks about that, and how
Yeah.
it makes you like want to be with them more, and why this isn't a casual thing." And I would just be like, "Ugh, Mom," but I was listening because I was
Sure.
like, "What are you
Yeah.
talking about? No one has talked about this."
Right.
So
Mm.
between the two of them, I had this really like deep, rich understanding of just my body and sexuality and relationships.
Yeah.
But also there was such a respect for sex and just
Okay.
for pleasure in marriage and in a
Yeah.
like committed relationship, and how
Yeah.
that's a gift, and
It's a
that's like
lot.
a
So it's like
really
that
like
foundation.
wonderful gift.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know
Yeah.
what I had. I
Mm.
didn't value
Oh,
that
yeah.
at
Yeah. It was
all as a
normal to
kid.
you.
I didn't even realize
Yeah.
how that was affecting me.
Wow.
And just
That's
as
thank you.
I went through adolescence, I watched and just like walked alongside so many friends
It's really an
making really
encouraging
painful
story. It's an
painful
encouraging story
story.
for all of
Yeah.
us because, like, it's just this story of, like, it wasn't a story of, yeah, I had to go through the hard times. It was a story like, no, my parents did the best they could, and I really grasped, their knowledge, and I loved them and I trusted them. Jordan, in a second, I'm going to ask her how sexual education has changed in the last 15 years. Have you seen that porn actress that is all over like the news and social media because she just broke the world record for like
Oh, I've seen those headlines. I have not done any digging into it, but
I
you
haven't done
want
any
to talk
digging
about the
into it. It
headline?
just pops up on my social media feed.
Yeah,
There's
I
this
know. I don't know if it was
por-
true or what.
it is
what
true,
the
and she was
story
just
is.
like
Okay.
she's being
Okay.
interviewed by
Yeah.
numerous news agencies, and so like I could go
Do you
on
want to
and
say what
on.
it is that she did?
Well, yeah, she had sex on camera with I think 100 men
100 in one
in
day.
one day. So she broke
That's
the
the
world
guess.
record.
Right. Right.
And then what she's doing is she's preparing to do 1,000 men, and she's a British, and it's really like all over. There's all over social media and even in news agencies, and I could go on, and I'm sure all three of us could about just how much there's just such a not only is there a glamorization of like sexual promiscuity, hooking up culture, like just how sex is just a physical act. There's a glamorization, but there's a normalization of it now. So you have these young children and girls now that are like, let's say there's probably millions of them that are learning about this actress who had sex with 100 men in one day. And you have a whole generation of young people that are growing up with OnlyFans. And so normalizing that of how a famous rapper can be on OnlyFans and how this one was on OnlyFans. You see these Instagram models all have OnlyFans accounts. And so it's just sad that this is where our culture is and this is normalization. Have you noticed that, Jordan, about a normalization and a glamorization?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's been around for a long time. I mean, talk about, seeing some of the stuff that Claire was witnessing in the movies. There's always been this affinity for, sex, or you could call it's art. We're going to be doing this scene and it's going to be art and it's going to be beautiful. And you're like, okay. And then you've got some people that are saying, hey, well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to normalize it. Okay. We're trying to make it to where it's not taboo. Why is it okay in the movies to shoot up, a bunch of people and kill them and get a PG-13 rating, and then you have one sex scene and it's a rated R? So there's maybe this idea where it's like we're trying to normalize it, but you're also going too far. And, by going too far, it's impacting our youth. So I don't even know what the question is other than, Claire, how do you, as a parent, fight that? You're fighting the world, and that's impossible to do. The world's always going to, win or overtake you, but maybe you have a message of hope to kind of help us battle that. It's because it's a giant.
I do. And I believe what I'm about to tell you with all my heart. I believe that the more that parents can have these open, honest, value-driven conversations around sexuality, if these are the first conversations, these are the foundational conversations, you create the platform from which the children jump off of. So everything they encounter henceforth is from the baseline that you created. And if that baseline is full of truth and values and support and just reality, then anything that comes in, you're going to set your child up to use a little bit more discernment than they would have if there's nothing there at all. And the first thing you ever see is a woman had sex with 100 men and we're celebrating her. But if that child already knew what sex was, already knew the parents' values around it and their hopes for their lives and how they want them to proceed forward,
well said.
then they can see that and be like, that doesn't jive with what I've been taught or what I think or what's even like seems healthy. And
Take a wild guess. Who is this woman's manager? Who's handling all of her money? Take a guess.
Should we even know?
It's her mother.
Oh,
So
really?
this is
this is
lining
like
up exactly. Case in point.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's wild.
Yes.
And she says, I'm very close to all my family. And so the family morals, the values, and this is the problem with what's happening in 2025 is that there's so many confused parents and there's so many scared parents that are afraid of setting a boundary. They're afraid of setting a line. They're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to screw my kid up. If I set a line, well, that means that aren't they going to want to rebel against it? Like, and no, that's what our children need. They need the edge of the pool. They need someone to say, this is where I want you to go. This is where I don't want you to go. And if you do go this area, then, we'll work it out together. It's complicated. It's confusing. I love you. Let's talk about it. But I want to be very clear with you. This is okay. This is not okay. This is okay when you're older. This is not okay right now.
Okay.
Right.
This is okay here. This is not okay. This is my hopes for you. This is what I want. But you're your own person. Let's talk about it because you got to develop your own path. Right, Claire?
I got a question. Hold on. I got a specific question. All right. So now, Claire, when we talk about what's okay and what's not okay, the general idea of this podcast so far is like obviously pornography, looking at stuff online and having this lackluster relationship with whatever it is we're looking at is not good, right? It's not good for the brain. It's not good for you. It's not good for relationships. So let's keep it healthy. Okay. When it comes to, let's say, something that maybe is you could consider scientifically healthy, masturbation, right? This is a very difficult topic for a lot of parents, right? And it's hard for parents to be like, well, just don't do it. Because especially if you've got like married parents and they're like, well, you guys get to hook up all the damn time. I'm freaking in my teens and I'm exploding here and I got to figure out how the heck I'm supposed to control my testosterone.
Joe's never
right?
said any swear words ever in years we've been doing that. That's his only time he said anything even close to that. Please continue. Sorry, man. Sorry.
Okay. So how are we supposed to balance that in a healthy way? How do you talk about that with your kids? How do you know what's healthy and what's not healthy?
Well,
Masturbation.
I was literally a friend of mine has 3 sons. They're all like those preteen ages, and we were literally talking about porn. And he was curious if there's a time where that should be introduced or shouldn't be punished, or like what is he supposed to do?
Right.
And I was like, well, you don't want them to get addicted to porn. So that's not the thing you want to happen. But to me, and the more that I study just the physiology of sexuality and sexual health, to me, masturbation has just been, it's been demonized in our culture. And I think the church has demonized it in a lot of ways. And to me, everything I've learned about how the body works and the functions of the body, there is a place for masturbation. And to me, it's more like exercise. Like when you're really angry and upset, I mean, you guys both look like you probably exercise. Like you probably go for a run or you like lift some weights and you feel better. And
Yeah.
like, look, I go to a yoga class, like there's a way to exercise and like give yourself some kind of relief. And as like a hormonal pubescent human being who you don't want having sex with everyone and you don't want having a porn addiction, there can be a time to talk about masturbation and like when you can do it and how to do it and the hygiene around it.
Yeah.
And I know that makes people really uncomfortable. And I probably like lost a
No.
bunch of customers
No,
right
no,
now.
it doesn't.
But I
But
think it's like, to me, I regard
yeah.
it like an exercise, and
Yeah, I
it's like
like what you're
another
saying,
way
but
to stay
you're
healthy.
also differentiating. I want to make sure I heard you right.
Right.
You're making it clear. Masturbating to pornography is different
No.
than masturbating
Yes.
on your own.
No, you cannot. If there's and this is something I think should be talked about, particularly
This
to
has to be talked
boys,
about.
because the male brain is wired to be more sexually visual. So the visual stimulus connected to an orgasm is what neurologically rewires the brain,
Right.
from what I understand.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
girls
that makes
tend
sense.
to be a little less visual in the sexual spaces. So it's a slightly less addictive thing. But if you remove the stimulus, like the visual stimulus, and it's just a masturbation experience that's just you like taking care of yourself, that is not an addictive
Help us,
experience.
because we need help. We need help. Give us some scripting. I do a lot of role playing with the parents that I work with, either in one-on-one sessions or inside of my VIP membership. A lot of role playing. And I think why they like it so much is it gives them scripting, it gives them tone, it gives them ideas. Oh, that's how you can say this. And so it's almost like that's how it's like coaching. It's like a little kid, Dad, I don't know how to swing a baseball bat, and then you show them over and over. So give us some scripting. How would you talk to a teenager who is, let's just go with masturbation, who is you want to talk to them about masturbation, and
You just go, hey, son, hey, daughter.
yeah, what does it sound like?
Come here. I need to talk to you for a
Yeah.
Yeah.
second.
Like,
Yes,
how would
I
it
will-
sound? Give us like a 30-second script about, I know it's not long, about like, how do you talk to them about that? Like, could you just pretend like you're talking to a 13 or 12-year-old right now and talk?
I've had to talk to way younger kids about this. That when
Yep.
I've noticed that you like touching yourself, and that's a completely normal and natural thing. Like, it's totally normal for a person to explore their body and how it works, and to realize that it feels good to do that. And it probably feels good while you're doing it, and then you feel better after you do it too, unless you've been shamed, then that's a different thing. But for this child, I would say there is a time and a place to do that. And this is something that you shouldn't look at books or pictures or like anything pornographic when doing this, but you can, like, there's nothing wrong with touching yourself and making yourself feel better. But there are certain times in a day or in your life when this is appropriate, or like it's private, like something you do on your own, and you need to have like good hygiene around that. You need to wash your hands. Like, you don't need to invite other people into this experience. And this is something that if you start to do it all the time and it starts to take away from other areas of your life, then that's when you've crossed the line into this.
Well,
you're doing
Mom,
this too
what's all the
much.
time? What do you mean, Mom? Like, Dad, what's all the time? How often?
Well, what do you think is the appropriate amount of time to do
I don't
it?
know,
Like,
brother. What do you think, brother?
yeah, what do you think? I often that's what I'm always throwing questions at my kids or kids that
That's
I talk
great.
to. Like, well, how often do you
I
think
get
is
it.
too much? Well, if you do it 3 times a day, what are you missing out on? Well,
Oh,
what is
that's
it going
good.
to detract from because you're adding this into your day? Like, if
Right.
this is something that makes you feel good, like eating cake also makes you feel good for a second, but
Right.
can you eat that 4 or 5 times a day without feeling sick? Like, this is also something that involves self-control, but it is also like like a treat, I guess. Like I've never said that before. I don't throw that in the script. But it's
No, but
like
yeah, I get
it's
what you're saying.
like
You're
this
actually
is
doing really great. Like I'm learning a lot listening to you say
Me
this.
too.
This is
and it would
Me too.
be
fantastic.
different. I mean, it would be different depending on who I'm talking to because I ask a
Sure,
lot of
of
feedback
course.
questions from kids I talk to.
Yeah.
But that's the
No, that's
general
really
idea.
wise.
And as a parent, I think it's really important to fill that out. But there can be too much. But I think helping a kid understand anything that takes, like, if you start thinking about it all the time and you're just like, I just can't wait to go home and do this,
Mm-hmm.
then that's the check-in point with the parent. Like, can you do it and just be like, okay, I feel better now, like moving on with my life? Or are you like, I can't wait to do that again, I'm gonna do that again, I'm gonna do that again, and then you're like, you're starting
Oh,
to lose parts of your life
no,
to it.
mom, it's not like that. No, but yeah, that's good. What you said that you're helping them is a difference between an impulsive, I want to do it again and again and again,
Right.
versus what you're talking about, Claire, which is like, hey, if you feel like you want this, it's natural. Don't feel guilty about it. There's a time and a place to do it. That's kind of what I hear you saying. Am I hearing you
Right.
right?
It's more of like a disciplined release. Like, to me, like, I keep going back to exercise.
Disciplined release.
That's
Dude,
how I
I've never
think of
heard it
it.
termed as an exercise before. That was the first time I've ever heard that, and that was, I feel like it's kind of wise. You know, it's interesting.
Disciplined release.
There's not a lot of people that can even have this conversation with me. But that
I know.
I think it's a lot to ask of a young person to never have sex and don't hook up with anyone and don't look at porn and never touch yourself and like
Right.
that's a big ask. I mean, just as the human race has not evolved physically as much as we have perhaps like intellectually over the last 1,000 years. And all these young people are getting married at like 12 or 15. I mean, just sexual life started so young. So to require that a
Right.
human being who's created to reproduce and
Yeah.
is driven to do this, and there's
Right.
required that you can't touch any of these most basic carnal part aspects of yourself, and then if you do, you should feel really bad about it. So then it tips you over
Right.
to the edge of addiction because you're just like, I
Right.
want this so bad, and you're just
Yeah.
so deprived. Like, how can we create a healthy standard around our bodies and around our
Really
sexual
good.
experiences without them being harmful or addictive or shameful? Like, I'm convinced there is a way. And I think
Yeah.
parents are the only ones who can own this conversation, and it's
They
going to
are.
be with
They really
very
are.
patient, honest
Yeah.
boundary setting. And it's like I give you masturbation, but under these conditions so that you stay healthy. And it's just like,
Sure.
I give you dessert and under these conditions so you
Mm-hmm.
don't overdo and you stay healthy. Like, we do this all the time in all these other areas of our lives. Like, why are we forbidding our bodies, like in our children's bodies, from these most basic and important urges that really do impact your health in these major ways?
I'm going to send this
Well said.
episode to my 2 teenagers. I don't know if they're going to listen
Oh,
to it.
jeez.
I hope they
Oh
do.
my God.
I am
How
because
about you do what her dad did? Hey guys, we're gonna listen to a podcast together, and you put it on, and you all listen to it as a family.
yeah, no, I
And then
do.
you pause it, Sean,
I do
and
a
you say,
lot.
"How did that make you feel?
How does
What do
that
you
make
think
you
about what
feel?
Claire said?"
Right. I do a lot of the movies. A lot of the movies, like I was, we were talking on. I was on somebody else's podcast last week, and Love Actually came up, and I thought I liked that movie because it's a very well-known, popular Christmas movie. But I watched it. It was just my wife and I just despised the movie. It was just. It's not a movie about. It should not be called Love Actually. It should be called Lust Actually. It shows. It's just. And it's a movie that I almost like want to watch with my teenagers to be like, this is what I like. This shows you like exactly what not to do. There's just such
You should watch it with
a
them.
lack of connection. It's just such a normalizing. It's not even real. Like this person, they're not even really talking here. And I do sometimes my kids, I annoy them because they're like, Dad, just play the movie. But I'll be like, hey, not to be annoying, but like like in the movies, when people have hookup sex, there's almost never any talks of protection
Yeah.
or using protection. And so when I teach, I used to do a lot of teaching in health classes. I would talk about that. Like, have you ever, like when you're watching that, you're seeing these people just have sex right off the bat and they're hooking up. Like, I just want to let you know that that's fantasy. That's not healthy. That's not the way it is in the real world, or it should be. So, Claire, those are I've learned so much. I feel like I talk to you for hours. You probably get that a lot. Jordan, do you have any final thoughts for Claire as we wrap up this time together?
No, I've learned so much, and I'm really appreciative that you breached this topic because I know it's so awkward for so many people, and it's so great that we have someone like you who decided to make this their profession to help people. Because a lot of us are like, "Oh, they'll figure it out in the school," and then we get mad at the school when they talk about the stuff we don't want them to talk about, but then we
Right.
don't want to talk about it at all. So
know.
it's great to have
Yeah.
someone else, a third party, give us advice,
Yes.
show us how, and it really sounds like you've got such a good head on your shoulders, and a good belief system as to what is healthy, what is right, and what is wrong. And so,
Right.
just I guess thank you.
I'm gonna
You're
make
welcome.
I'm gonna make a joke. It's kind of a joke against football coaches. Are you ready? Okay, so a lot of sex education happens in the 5th grade, and or in freshman health classes in here in California. That's the earliest that kids get it. And a lot of freshman health classes, the teachers are the football coaches.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you really want some football coach, right, at a local high school to be the one really teaching your children about proper sex education and all the ramifications that come with sex? You
Right.
you don't want that. No offense to all you freshmen health teachers. Love you all. Keep up the good work. No, you want parents or teachers in every home is cool. We want to be the parent that Claire is, and calling us and encouraging us to be. And what a
For
cool
sure.
name for her website, her work. It's called Clarify. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Let's
cool?
clarify it.
It's my pun. But
So where can we find you on social media? Even though you'll be censored a lot, where can we find you, Claire, to go
I
deeper
am
with
on
you?
social media. But you can, if people can find my work and all my contributions there at clarifysexeducation.com. So I have a website, and I actually sell foundational sex education lessons for parents and kids. And I've actually recorded myself teaching, and they look great. The girl that did my videos is amazing. But I
yeah.
have 8 lessons, and they're all foundational, where I
Great.
explain what everything is, and I don't use any particular like faith system or value system, just outside of kindness
Yeah.
and empathy, so that they're accessible to any parent.
Yeah.
So you could potentially show your child the video, and like the puberty video or the menstruation video or the intercourse video. And then I have
That's
these really great parent guidebooks that walk parents through kind of past, present, future hopes, expectations of where
Yeah.
the message you want to convey, and
Yeah.
and really get your head around the values you want to convey to your child. So my tagline is, I say all the things, and then you can talk about what your values are. So I've set you up to debrief with your kid and just say what you want them to do with this information and your hopes for them, and like how it aligns with your family and your unique values. But then they still have factual, foundational information from my videos that so
Great.
everyone's
Yeah.
getting something that they need. But I'm accessible online. I do have a live community, the Clarified community, and I do get on there and do live Q&As and answer questions. So
Oh,
And
that's
it's Clarify with a C. Everybody can look it up,
Yes.
and then you could find her on. Yeah, I'm
Thank
just looking
you.
at your Twitter and your Instagram. So great.
Parents or
Glad you're out there.
teachers, and every home's a school. Teach your kids very well. Keep loving your kids. Keep guiding them on all these sensitive topics. Claire, thanks for joining us.
thank
Much
you
love,
so
everyone.
much.